We have recently sailed on board Royal Caribbean's Independence of the Seas on a 5-day Northern Europe itinerary. This cruise started in the port of Southampton and was visiting Rotterdam and Hamburg. We did not choose this cruise for the itinerary, but for the ship, as we have never sailed on board a Royal Caribbean ship before.
This video is going to be a full review of that cruise. We're going to take you through everything that we found about the ship and tell you exactly what we thought. Starting with the embarkation process, we really liked that we could choose our own embarkation time via the check-in process 6 weeks before the sailing, and we were nice and prompt and managed to get an 11:30 time. As with most cruise lines, we were able to complete all of our check-in information online, and we were able to print our own luggage labels at home. This made the check-in process nice and smooth and easy when we got to the port.
On the morning of the cruise, we left our hotel in Southampton, the White Star Tavern, at 11 AM. We got an Uber from there straight to the port. When our taxi arrived at the port, people came straight over to take our luggage out of the car for us, which was great and really efficient and quick. We then headed straight into the building and headed through security. After we had gone through security, we were checked in using our passport and our digital pass, which was on our phone. We then were told to head straight to the ship. When you get to the ship, you are scanned in on the prom deck, which we quite liked because it made it feel exciting as it was different. We found the check-in system really efficient and really quick, from taking our suitcases out of the car, which is really helpful as you're not struggling to find the right pod to put them into, to just how quick it was once you were in the terminal building. All in all, it took us around 20 minutes.
Once on board, we were able to head straight to our muster station to get our card scanned. And again, this was super easy and quick and efficient, as we had completed the other muster steps on the Royal Caribbean app. We then headed up to the Windjammer, which we had heard would be very busy on embarkation day, and we were pleasantly surprised. It was pretty calm in here. We were able to have a good look around. There were plenty of tables to sit at. So overall, it was a brilliant embarkation experience. It was very easy, but we do think this probably was down to the fact that we had such an early embarkation time.
Moving on to our accommodation. To make our cruise more cost efficient, we booked a guaranteed balcony cabin. This means we did not know the location of it until closer to the sailing date, and the cabin that we were given was number 6532. We were pleased with the location when we looked at it on the plans, as sometimes it can be a bit of a lottery. There are certain cabins you wouldn't want to end up with. We have a full review of the cabin on our channel, so if you want to know more, watch that. However, a bit of a spoiler is we were not very impressed with it when we first entered the cabin, as it had not been cleaned very well. There were also lots of signs of wear and tear, and in general, the cabins look like they need a lot of work doing to them. We did, however, think there was a lot of space in the cabin, and we enjoyed using the balcony.
Even though the cabin was pretty unimpressive and looking a bit neglected, we were actually pretty impressed with the condition of the rest of the ship. Public areas on the ship were all clean and well maintained, at a complete contrast to how the cabin was. There were some areas that did look a little bit old-fashioned, as you'd expect with a ship of this age, but we were very happy with the ship itself and all of the public areas.
As we hadn't sailed with Royal Caribbean before, we didn't really know what to expect with the atmosphere on board, and we suspected from watching other reviews that it would have quite a fun atmosphere, and we weren't wrong. There was a really good atmosphere on board, with everybody in really good spirits. Everybody was really eager to enjoy their 5 days. There were mixtures of families and adult groups. Whenever we saw children, they always looked like they were having a brilliant time. And a lot of the adults really took advantage of their drinks packages, but we never saw any ridiculous behaviour.
We thought overall that service on board Independence of the Seas was excellent. We had a couple of issues that we had to go to guest services to resolve, and they were very good at resolving those issues for us. They were dealt with quickly, efficiently, and the queues, although they looked large at guest services, went down very quickly. Staff in bars were also excellent, and we found that they seemed to remember what we were drinking, even though some of those bars we'd only been into and seen those staff members once in the past. We would walk in and they would say straight away what our drinks order usually was, which was excellent. The same went for in the dining venues. The staff were friendly and efficient still, whilst, taking some time to have a chat with you. We also thought that when we dined in the speciality venues, you could sort of see how good the service was, particularly in there. Overall, we were really impressed with the friendliness and helpfulness of all of the staff on board. We also particularly enjoyed seeing the washy man in his element at the entrance to the Windjammer, and it did seem to work and convince people to wash their hands on the way in.
Food on cruise ships is always a pretty big deal for most people and can be quite a deal breaker whether or not someone likes a cruise line. We had heard good things about the food on Royal Caribbean, so we were excited to try it. Before we boarded, we were able to book a slot in the main dining room. So we did that because we didn't want to end up in massive queues. In the main dining room, we enjoyed a variety of different foods, including some good old cruise classics like French onion soup and escargot. We also enjoyed some dishes that you would only find on American cruise lines, such as New York strip steak and Boston cream pie. We also appreciated the fact that there was always an Indian curry on offer, and we tried a couple of those. Overall, we found the food was okay. We enjoyed some of the dishes, but felt like some of them could be elevated a little bit better. We really enjoyed one dish in particular, which we hadn't ordered. The waiter brought it out for us anyway, a goat's cheese tart, which we really didn't think we would like, and we were surprised to find that we did. One big disappointment that I did have in the main dining room was that there were no crackers to go with the cheese, which to me makes absolutely no sense because I don't know why I just want some lumps of cheese for my dessert. We also found that the menu felt a little bit repetitive after a while. So I'm not sure how that would go down on a longer Royal Caribbean cruise.
We also used the Windjammer a few times throughout our cruise, and we were really impressed with it. We can definitely understand why people rave about the Windjammer, as we, to this point, hadn't experienced a cruise ship buffet that was quite as good as this one. The quality of the food was great, but also the amount of different things that were available to choose from. You would always find something that you fancied in there. There were burgers, chicken, there were, theme nights for sort of specific nationality dishes and things like that. We enjoyed the mac and cheese. So there was lots of good food going on in there, and we enjoyed it so much so that we even tried it out on an evening, which is unheard of for us. The only thing that we were a little bit unhappy with the Windjammer was that it does shut quite early. We believe it shut at 9:30 for the duration of our cruise, which is a lot earlier than any cruise that we've ever been on.
This meant that if you fancied a late night snack, the Windjammer was not where you would go. However, we soon discovered Sorrento's, which was open till around 2 a.m. in the morning. We had heard good thing about the pizza in Sorrento's, with people choosing to have it for their meal. We were excited to go there, and we found the pizza. Again, we thought it was just okay. We've had far better pizza on other cruise lines, such as on MSC, Costa and Princess. This just was your standard free pizza that you get, but it definitely was enjoyable at 1 a.m. in the morning when you just wanted something little to graze on.
We tried a couple of speciality dining venues on board our cruise, and the first one that we had was Giovanni's at lunchtime. For both of us, we paid £32.72 for this meal, which we thought was really good value for a speciality restaurant. We were able to get this discount because we pre-booked before the sailing via the app, and we did notice that there were lots of different discounts on offer throughout the run-up to our cruise, so it's worth keeping an eye out for those. We really enjoyed the food that we had as part of this meal. There was some great classic Italian American dishes in there that we thought were really tasty, and we also thought that the service was excellent in here. Our waitress was fantastic at explaining everything to us and kept checking on us and having a little chat as well throughout the course of the meal.
Another speciality that we tried was Azumi Hibachi. This speciality restaurant was far more expensive, as we paid $65 each. We wish we had booked it prior to boarding, but we actually didn't decide that we were going to go here until we were on board. The whole experience is great fun. You sit at a shared table around like a hot plate where the chef cooks, and you get involved in many games such as throwing the egg at your mouth and you've got to try and catch it, which I was very successful at. The food was of a really good high quality, and we got to try bits of other people's as well, because everybody around just had different meats, and if there was anything left, he put it on your plate anyway. The rice was delicious, and we just really enjoyed the experience as it was such good fun.
We also enjoyed a quick lunch in Playmakers, which again we enjoyed. We spent just under $32 on this meal, and we basically chose some items to share. We had some nachos, some onion rings and some chicken wings. The staff in here were happy to make some small amendments. We asked for no sour cream on our nachos, and that was no issue at all. The service in here was a little bit more difficult than it had been in the other specialities, but I do believe that's because it was just simply so busy the day that we'd chosen to go in there. Overall, again, we really enjoyed the food, and we did think it was worth the extra cost.
A decision that lots of people often find hard to make before a cruise is whether or not to get a drinks package. We will normally go for the drinks package if we can get it at a good price. Again, we managed to do this. We had an offer with the internet, which we will talk about later on, and we were happy with the price we got it for. We were really pleased that they took our onboard spend off it when we pre-booked as well, because most cruise lines won't do that and they expect you to spend it on board the ship. With the drinks package, you also get a refillable cup, which you can use at the freestyle choice machines. We did use it a couple of times. However, you could just get soft drinks at the bar as well, which we tended to find easier. We were impressed with the wide range of cocktails that you could get, some good spirits. I would have preferred there to be a better choice of wines at some of the bars, but we really enjoyed the selection in vintages. It was also interesting that drinking shots was quite encouraged on board, as there would be daily offers, which you would be able to get on the drinks package. If we hadn't have had the drinks package, the drinks would have been expensive, and we definitely would have spent more than what the drinks package cost us. If you, however, don't drink a lot and you prefer not to have the drinks package, we were impressed by the drinks that you could get in the Windjammer, as it wasn't just your standard water, tea and coffee.
We thought that the entertainment overall on board Independence of the Seas was excellent, and we were really impressed by the wide range of different activities and things like that that were available all the time. It started off from the moment that we sailed away with a really fun, high energy sail away party up by the pool. Everybody was up there getting involved, and the entertainment team really did a good job of getting people to participate. We also enjoyed some other daytime activities, one that we'd spotted in the programme before we went on board, which was making a penguin out of paper in Schooner's Bar one day. This was far too difficult for us, if we're honest. It was really hard, but we enjoyed it. There was also other activities happening in there, like napkin folding, which, to be honest, you know, these events were so popular that it was too difficult for us to be able to take part. But we just thought the range on offer was excellent.
The quizzes on board were extremely popular, and you often could not get a seat, as many of these took place in Schooner's Bar. However, when it was a port day, it was a lot easier to get a seat, and we chose to join a couple of quizzes on the ports day. We were delighted with one of our quizzes where we scored 19 out of 20. We were pretty impressed with ourselves, and we found doing the boy band quiz really fun. There was often music happening around the ship, such as one day we were sat outside Vintages and Pablo was playing his guitar, and there was also family karaoke on one of the days. So the daytimes were never dull, and you could find something to do every minute of every day.
Evening entertainment was just as widely varied, and we saw, again, different things happening all over the ship. We started off, I think, with one of our favourite bands on the first night on board, which were the Dukes. We saw them in Boleros that evening, which wasn't their usual home, and then we saw them appear in the Star Lounge quite regularly. We enjoyed various sets of theirs. We also liked that they did the rock-a-roke, and we enjoyed when they did some songs from our sort of favourite era of things like the Spice Girls and pop music like that. So they were excellent, and we really enjoyed watching them.
Lawrence Murray was the busker on board, and you could often see him performing in the Isle and Anchor. This is quite an intimate venue, but you can sit inside and outside of it. He was very talented and clearly bought himself a bit of a fan base on the cruise, because people would regularly go and see him. He would take requests if people wanted certain songs played, and he was just very talented and we enjoyed his performances.
Perry Grant was another popular performer on board the ship. His home was Schooner Bar, and we only managed to see him once because it was simply packed every time he was performing in there. Again, it was a really good interactive sort of performance that he would put on, getting everybody involved, and everybody seemed to love his performances.
Another one of our favourite pastimes on a cruise is visiting the theatre, as we really enjoy the fact that you can do that most nights. On board, we saw a variety of entertainment, such as the comedian Josh Daniels, and then late night comedy with Phil Walker, who we have seen before. His show was more classic cruise, and I think if you were American, you probably wouldn't have got some of the humour. We saw the show Destination Dance, which we found to be a classic cruise ship show. And in fact, we didn't actually know some of the songs in there. So again, that was obviously for the American audience. Our favourite show in the theatre, however, was Grease, which we found absolutely outstanding. We know it's not on board anymore, which we are sad to hear, because it would be a reason for us to book Independence of the Seas. We thought all the cast were very talented and the whole audience really enjoyed it.
We were also able to see two things in Studio B, which is basically the ice rink on board. The first thing we saw in there was the Quest, which was super fun. Again, everybody got involved in that. It was very competitive and we really enjoyed it. It was something that we knew we wanted to definitely take part in before we got on board the ship. And then the other thing we saw in there was the ice skating show Freeze Frame. This was really popular on board and it was packed in there from about 25 minutes before the show started. So you definitely need to make sure you get in there early if you want to have a seat. We again really enjoyed it and it was just fun to be able to do something a little bit different on board a cruise. So yeah, we really enjoyed that part.
One of the things we were really looking forward to experiencing on board was some of the parties that you had on the Royal Promenade. The first show that we experienced was Rock Britannia Street Party. This was great fun. The entertainment cast were dancing away on the bridges and everybody on the Royal Promenade was also getting involved. We also saw a show from two of the vocalists from the cast where they sang songs from the 70s as a warm-up before the Decade show. Again, we really enjoyed the Decade show. The entertainment team were all having great fun, and so were all the passengers getting involved in dances, and we enjoyed that it even had songs from our favourite eras, and we got to do some dances like Stop to Spice Girls.
As we said, we definitely didn't book this cruise for the ports, and both ports that we visited on this sailing were places we'd been to quite frequently previously. So in Hamburg, we made the decision not to get off the ship. We did dock somewhere completely different in Hamburg to where we've docked before. We actually docked right next to a Westfield shopping centre, and we know a lot of the passengers on board did enjoy being able to get off and use that shopping centre for a bit of souvenir shopping. We had made some plans for our day in Rotterdam. We were going to visit the zoo, but unfortunately we were very late arriving into the port that day. We didn't manage to get into the port until around 1 p.m. because of the currents and the winds as we were heading in, which meant we couldn't make it as far as the zoo. We did, though, get to go and watch the arrival into the port from the helipad, which we really enjoyed and thought was a great place to be able to watch things like that.
As we've said, we thought the condition of the ship was quite good in the public areas. However, we did find that many of the venues were quite small for the amount of people on board, and this meant that for popular acts it would be difficult to get a seat, such as in Schooner's Bar for Perry Grant. We really enjoyed sitting outside some of the bars on the Royal Promenade because you could just watch the world go by and watch people hunting for ducks, which we always found quite amusing. Another venue that we were really impressed with was the buffet area, the Windjammer, as it was really big and actually was sufficient for the amount of people on board the ship.
We found the dress code on board to be pretty relaxed, is probably how we'd describe it. We did have a formal night of sorts on board, but people did not dress very formally for this evening. Not like we would have sort of seen on other cruise lines. We did find, though, that people did tend to change and dress into something nice for the evening. So people were sort of, I suppose, dressing for dinner to a fashion, but just perhaps probably not in the same way that you might see on some more traditional cruise lines.
We were really impressed with the onboard technology, especially the app. We found it to be really useful. You could look at what was going on and you could book things that you needed to on board. We had pre-booked the internet beforehand, And we also found that this was really fast and we didn't have any issues with it at all.
Disembarkation was one thing that we were a little bit surprised at. We had the first call for people to disembark the ship at 5:40 a.m, which, to be honest, we thought was pretty absurd. Overall, disembarkation ran earlier than it should have throughout the morning, and we were able to get off the ship about 30 minutes before our disembarkation time. It was a very quick and efficient process, but we didn't think there was any need for the announcements to be made ship-wide for each of the disembarkation times. We haven't been on a cruise line that's operated in this way for a very long time now, and we did find it a bit irritating when we were trying to get our last couple of hours of sleep on our final morning.
We paid £884 per person for our guaranteed balcony cabin. This came with some onboard credit of £118.17, which seems like a really random amount, but clearly it was dollars and then got moved into British pounds. The drinks package and the internet cost us in total for both of us £720, which sounds like quite a lot of money, but when you break it down into the different parts, it's not as bad as you think. Also, we found that the drinks package was really good value for money and we were impressed with the internet. Don't forget you also have gratuities to pay every day, which on this cruise for us were $18.50 a day per person. This works out at $185 in total extra. All of this together then comes to a cost of about £2,500 for both of us for 5 days. This actually, when we worked it out, we were shocked to find it cost us as much money as this, as we would usually spend far less on a 5-night cruise. However, the amount of entertainment on board made it seem more worthwhile because we were never bored and we genuinely really loved the cruise.
Overall, we loved our first experience of Royal Caribbean and we thought the ship was fantastic. The only thing that let us down was the cabin and the standard of the accommodation on board.
We would love to sail with Royal Caribbean again. However, we would prefer it to be on a newer ship. Royal Caribbean keep on sending older ships to the UK, so we doubt it will be on a UK sailing. However, we would never say never, especially if we saw a good deal. The price might also put us off a little bit as we couldn't afford to necessarily pay for a drinks package on a longer cruise. So we are unsure as to whether we will become regular Royal Caribbean cruisers.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give this video a like and drop any questions you've got in the comments down below. Please also make sure that you're subscribed to our channel. You can also find us on social media by searching Sisters on the Seas.